Welcome back to Leeds Lately. Today is going to be a little bit of a news update video. We're going to be talking about some players that have been linked with moves to the club and just a little bit of a chat of all things Leeds United. So before we get into it, make sure you hit that big red button down below. The first thing we're going to talk about though is the biggest news of the week, and that's that Leeds United apparently bid £15 million for Jezurun Raksaki from Crystal Palace. Now, the player is somebody who Crystal Palace wanted to keep hold of. They made that clear from the start of the window. I think what this is Leeds exhausting all their options with the player and saying to Crystal Palace, final offer, will you take £15 million? And I think they've rejected it. So Leeds aren't going to be able to get Raksaki this window. Now, some people are saying, I saw comments saying, oh, I'm tired of the 49ers playing their little games or whatever. They do tend to move silently in the background and then a deal gets done. They're obviously trying different routes. They've tried for Jonathan Rowe, and I think we'll go back in for him now that this Raksaki bid has been rejected. Of course, that one's still Jonathan Rowe up in the air because Marseille did come in for a bid, but then Norwich City have rejected that, and then potentially Leeds can go back in with a higher bid, which is what I hope they do. If you haven't seen already, I did make a video about Jonathan Rowe, and go and watch it. I recommend it because it talks about the kind of profile of player he is and how he's going to kind of replace Somerville's goals, hopefully, and be the sort of player who can stretch the play alongside Dan James on that other side. So gives you something a little bit different from what we've got on that left with Nonto. But at the moment, that bid has been rejected by Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace favoured a loan more of him going out on loan. Apparently, Sheffield United are willing to take a loan, even though Crystal Palace have a recall clause in January that they want to put in this loan, apparently, according to sources on the internet. So, essentially, Leeds would have been open to a loan, but Crystal Palace said, in January, we want the right to recall him. And basically the 49ers have said, well, that'll be mid-season for us. We want to have the best team that we can and not have things like that completely change the squad, having to have players recalled and stuff. So they said, no, we don't want to be messed around. We're not going to do a loan. Sheffield United, though, however, are happy to be bent over backwards in this case. They're going to go, well, I'm gonna take him anyway, and even though Crystal Palace might recall him in January, and then they might be stuck in the same position they were to start with having paid a loan fee for him as well. So I think Sheffield United will probably get him on loan, given that they're more willing to agree to the Crystal Palace terms, and I think that Leeds are more likely to say no to a deal like that, and they went in and said, you know what, 15 million, will you take it, will you not? They said no. We're going to move on now. They're not going to go higher than that, I don't think, personally, the 49ers. I think what they'll do is they'll go and have a look at Jonathan Rowe again and potentially get him for around £10 million, which I think would be worth it and a good deal in the end. There haven't been a massive amount of other wingers linked in those positions. Sammy Szmodics keeps getting linked again and again and again. But when I see the links, it's more like Leeds urged to sign Sammy Szmodics by whoever. So I don't think there's much in them. It's basically ex-pros and stuff going, oh, Leeds should sign Sammy Szmodics, and then news articles coming out about it. So I don't think there's much in that. But it remains to be seen what happens with Jonathan Rowe, and I personally hope that one gets through the door. Now, the next one is Leeds have now been linked to Bobby Clark. Again, we were a couple of weeks ago linked with Bobby Clark with a move for the young Liverpool midfielder, son of Lee Clark, ex-Newcastle United player. Leeds are pretty covered in this position for youngsters. Now, Bobby Clark could be the next big thing. He hasn't had a massive amount of Premier League football. He's had very little, actually, but he has played in the FA Cup final. Was it the FA Cup? It was one of the finals. I think it was the Carabao Cup final, actually, against Chelsea. But either way, I think, yes, he's got a little bit more experience than somebody like Charlie Crew, but I think he blocks his pathway to the first team, and I don't necessarily think he starts for us, Bobby Clark. I think you've got Gruev and Ampadu in there who are more accomplished players and will probably start over him. So for me, I just don't think it's worth it to bring Bobby Clark in on loan. I'd rather bring in a more a more mature, more experienced player to try and play that role. Someone who can sit into that midfield and do things straight away without having the need for that kind of development. And essentially as well, when you are loaning in a young player, you are developing them for that club. You bring in a Joe Rothwell, you're not, he's as he is. He's not going to improve. He's not going to degrade too much in the next couple of years. So we're not really doing anything other than giving him game time. Whereas somebody like Bobby Clark, Liverpool are expecting basically us to develop him for them and send him back. But when you look at the talent that we have in youth, in terms of people like Charlie Crew who are vying for that position in midfield, I think you have to develop your own talent sometimes. And Charlie Crew, I think, deserves to have that chance. And hopefully we see him get some game time in, for example, the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, whenever that comes around in January. So I think that, again, for me, the Bobby Clark one is a no-go, and I don't think that that's worth us investing our time in. I think I'd rather see Charlie Crew get that pathway to the first team. I did make a video about that, so if you want to watch the full video explaining it, then go and have a look at that. It's on the channel. Last one is that Bashir Humphreys has been linked. Now, you'll have seen when I upload this, I'm going to decide afterwards, but either yesterday or tomorrow, there's a video about Bashir Humphreys and his sort of linked move to Leeds. He's obviously spent a couple of years on loan. Last year it was at Swansea, the year before that was at Paderborn in Germany. And he hasn't had a massive amount of first-team football. To me, similar mould to what we've already got in James DeBio, so it's actually a similar kind of position that we'd be in to what we're in with Bobby Clark. And I think, given the fact that somebody like Bashir Humphreys wouldn't start in Leeds United's team, I think I would stick with James DeBio and spend that money elsewhere, because it's rumoured to be around £4 million as well. If you can put that money, extra money, into the Jonathan Rowe bid, maybe get him for £12 million, something like that, I would rather that than spend that extra £4 million on getting Bashir Humphreys in. For me, I don't think it's entirely worth it, given the cover that we've already got there and a similar mould of player to what he is to actually James DeBio as well. So that's kind of the roundup for Leeds United at the moment. Of course, we've got our Carabao Cup game this midweek against Middlesbrough. Join me live for that on the channel. Don't miss that. I'll be live for that, and then there'll be, of course, a match reaction as well afterwards. So yeah, look out for that on the channel. Thanks for watching Leeds Lately. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think of these players down in the comments below, and whether you would be interested in signing them, or whether you think, like me, that kind of sometimes you have to develop your own talent in getting them through to the first team. But thanks for watching Leeds Lately, and I'll see you in the next one.